Dahaad, the lord of all things.
Huh, my food buff seems to be running out in a few minutes, but I don't need to eat quite yet. I guess I can just hang out a bit longer. It's not like there's anything dangerous going on. Ladies, gentlemen, and masters of all ages, how would you like to hit 1100 defense? Well, to answer my own question, generally speaking, you wouldn't. It is simply incredibly unnecessary, unbelievably over the top, and it's a number that we never should have been able to reach in a base Monster Hunter game. And what it does to the strongest attacks that could hit you, the one-shot attack on the strongest version of the monster that wields it, an attack that literally has a mechanic built into the game to help you solve it by hiding behind cover, and yet you can instead just build for defense and barely even feel the slightest tickle. Today we're going to take defense and damage reduction to the absolute maximum as an experiment to see just how far it can be pushed in Monster Hunter Wilds, and because I think it's fun to see just how pathetic you can make the most threatening things in the game against you. Some of this will be information that you can maybe use to adjust your sets. Maybe you'll just choose to go a bit more towards defense, even if not the full ridiculous lengths that I'll be taking here. So I'll break down each step of defensive gain, how much you actually get from each one, how much it's worth, and how finicky it is to maintain, especially things like consumables as well, explaining how we reach the heights that we will here. Then we'll just watch some monsters beat on this setup for a bit because it's funny, honestly, and we'll talk about what it all really means, what it says about defense and a defensive build focus in Wilds. First up then, let's talk about the weapons that I'll be using here. The easiest way to gain defense from weapons is to use hunting horn. Plural, because with Wilds and its weapon swapping mechanic, uniquely this lets you have one hunting horn that has the defense up large song, play it with encore to boost it to extra large for a 20% overall defense increase, which is pretty tasty, but then we can also use the arkveld hunting horn in our other weapon slot after swapping, which has a defense and elemental resistance boosting echo bubble, which seems to give right around 10% bonus defense and some extra resistances too. For our armor, the best way to stack pure defense is 3 alpha arkveld pieces, as arkveld and guardian arkveld have the highest raw defense stat, and the alpha arkveld set has the fortifying pelt group bonus. This is the equivalent of fortify from previous Monster Hunter games, which means that it gives you a % increase to your defense and attack after dying, up to a 15% increase to both after your second cart in the same quest. Then duna armor for the 2 remaining pieces to get the duna 2-set bonus, with the most amount of sockets possible that we can get from those pieces being the ones that I chose. Generally speaking, this set bonus is good for this because it gives us a bonus 25 defense while we are wearing a mantle. The main reason we're doing that is that this is fully for the sake of the experiment of that one singular damage reduction more than anything else, and while obviously you won't always have a mantle on because of how mantles work, for the sake of seeing how much we can reduce Jin Dahaad's Ice Nova damage, it ends up being worth more than the 2 other pieces of Rarity 8 armor that you could use instead with their flat defense increases. A more practical, technical option would be to run Gravios set bonus for damage reduction when full health in combination with Vitality Mantle to immediately heal any chip damage that you take, and that overall would result in less damage taken than using duna 2-set once you get to the actual defense numbers that we hit, because gaining 25 defense when you're at 1075 defense is really minuscule in comparison. Then we use the Defense Charm, as Defense Boost is the main skill that can increase our defense stat in general, and as a 7 rank skill, it's not very feasible to hit without getting 4 ranks of it from the charm. Then for the mantle, the technically most fitting one is Rocksteady Mantle, but that doesn't technically increase your defense. It just gives you a % damage reduction and removes flinches. But for the sake of it, here's the Nova without Rocksteady so you can see how little difference it really makes once you reach the point that we're at here. I mean, honestly, use any mantle you want at this stage, right? But the mantle being on is required to trigger duna set bonus. Then using the decoration sockets in the gear, we get the rest of defense boost up to rank 7 for a total of 10% bonus defense, 35 bonus flat defense, and +5 to all element resistances. Then we take the resistances related to our target as well, so full ice resistance for what we're going for here, for 20 bonus ice res and 10 bonus flat defense as well, because when you have full 3 ranks of any element resistance skill, it will also give you 10 flat flat defense as a nice bonus. Then I've got the self-improvement skill, which gives you bonus flat attack and defense throughout the quest timer as time goes on, with the maximum bonus being plus 15 defense after 30 minutes. Yes, the number is small, but we're maximizing here, which means yes, I did in fact slot this in and then wait until 20 minutes were left on the quest timer before actually taking the hits. Never question my commitment. On top of this, our armor choices get us elemental absorption, which just gives us extra resistances when we get hit by an element, and you will see at points that this can fluctuate your resistances up and above 50, which is a pretty ridiculous amount of elemental damage reduction as well, on top of the physical damage reduction we have too. Then we have consumables here too. Mega armor skin is 25 bonus defense, adamant seed is 20 defense, hard shell powder is 20 defense for yourself and any allies, and then an adamant pill increases your defense seemingly by 20% in wilds, which is down from its previous version, but it lasts for 20 seconds. And then we are also eating for defense too. Could technically eke out a few more points of defense if I had a feast offered to me by one of the village people, but I just ate a grilled meal for the tiny defense that gives. Overall, to count our bonuses, I had plus 2 defense from food, plus 35 flat defense from defense boost, plus 10 from our maxed elemental resistances, plus 25 from our set bonus while wearing a mantle, plus 65 flat defense from all the consumables together listed before, plus 15 from waiting for the full bonus from self-improvement, and then all of our percent increases as well. 10% extra from defense boost, 20% extra from defense up large XL melody on the one hunting horn, 10% extra from the defense echo bubble on the other hunting horn, 20% extra from adamant pill being active for the 20 seconds when we know the attack's coming, and then an extra 15% from fortify after we've died twice. And for reference, purposefully dying twice in the setup, even without playing the hunting horn songs and stuff, was still very difficult. So in total, that's 152 flat defense that we gain, and then a 75% increase at the end too, most of which boost that bonus flat defense as well. Just for the sake of saying this now that we're at this point, this is beyond anything reasonable within the game. Your damage is still like manageable at this stage, like you'll clear quests just fine, even if you go into like full defense like I've done here, because most of your damage comes from the weapon stats themselves, because this is a base game monster hunter. This will become less possible to use properly as we get further and further into title updates and into the expansion, but right now this is at a point where it's actually usable, and honestly, you could lean a bit less into defense that I have to gain some more offense, but at that point, just use the immortal build that we've already got on the channel. This isn't meant to be a usable playstyle. I'm not presenting you a build, I'm just showing you exactly how far defense can be pushed, and this is it. An average player will sit somewhere around like 380 defense in endgame, unless they also chug defensive consumables every quest or play with a hunting horn player nearby, something like that. But the fact that you can push up to nearly 3 times that amount purely through buffs, boosts, skills, and consumables is absolutely nuts. And I'm pretty sure this is the highest defense that we have ever been able to hit in a base Monster Hunter game by a good margin, meaning not an expansion. As you can see by the actual results of the damage being taken, it's ludicrous, based on prior game defense formulas for damage reduction, which would have been 80 divided by 80 plus your defense times 100, and then if we calculate in our actual defense numbers here, hitting 1100 defense while using a melee weapon would be around a 93.2% damage reduction, compared to just getting hit full blast with nothing on. For reference, being at 700 defense would still be just over a 90% damage reduction, so essentially we're investing an extra 400 worth of defense stat for a further 3.5% damage reduction, which may sound ridiculous. Oh, you're only taking 3.5% less damage, but think about it from a different viewpoint. If at 700 defense, we are taking 10% of the damage that we would naked, that is our new baseline. And then at 1100 defense, we are taking 7.5% damage. That means that we are taking 25% less damage relative to what we were taking at 700 defense. So it's not like it's a completely unreasonable amount of gain, it's actually 30% damage reduction relative to where we were. It's just that at a certain point, with the damage intake in the game, even the biggest hits from a 5-star tempered monster with an attack that is meant to outright kill you if you don't respect its mechanics in some way, do so ridiculously little damage that taking 25% less damage from it means like nothing. It's excessive to a ridiculous degree. That said, hitting 700 defense makes you take around half of the damage of having 300 defense, and that's part of why I wanted to do this whole thing. It's just to round back to numbers like that, to say, hey, I know I'm hitting literally 1100 here, and that is just so ridiculous. But these are all the different ways that I've done to get here. These are all the different things you can do to gain defense. Some of them are definitely more reasonable to include in a regular setup than others. I think it's far more reasonable to say, hey, maybe carry around some mega armor skins than it is to say, hey, maybe play double hunting horns with a defensive ability focus. But that's the point. If you only slightly invest in defense, you will still see a lot of return compared to someone who doesn't care about their defense and doesn't think about it at all. If you invest a fair bit of effort into it, you get consumables, maybe 1 or 2 defensive skills in your armor 2, you will see a surprisingly large difference in your damage taken. But then you can also go too far out the other end, like I've done here, and just hit the point where you barely ever need to heal. So you may as well just work back some of that defense, carve it off, and replace it with some more offense. Especially when I add on the bonus note that Rocksteady Mantle, if you're using it, reduces damage taken by 30% while active. So, you know, it really does get to absolutely silly territory at a certain point. That just about does it for today, then everyone, an experiment into the depths of maximizing defense as a stat and damage reduction in Monster Hunter Wilds. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and just how ridiculous things can get. But again, even just taking a portion of this concept and working it into your hunts will increase your comfort dramatically against the tougher endgame monsters. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.